Here's a question for you. Is editing getting too easy or are photographers getting too lazy? Right. Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you've grabbed yourself a coffee, because in this video we're going to have a quick little look at the new mask features in Lightroom. And to pose a question which I just asked, is editing getting a little bit too easy for us now? And have photographers got really lazy because we're so used to the wonderful AIs that are going on in Adobe at the moment? Yes and no, I think, is the answer to those questions. It's sort of like technology is coming up so quick at the moment that the Lightroom new mask features make the editing process so much easier for us that when I have a shed load of photographs, when I go out, I take 200 to 300 and I can just sit there and click a couple of little edits and move on. Rather than when I first started out as a photographer and editing photographs, you had to do all the fiddly work yourself, and I wasn't really keen on using presets because I didn't quite understand them to begin with. And with these new features that have come out in the 2021 version of Lightroom, it blows my mind. Now, don't get me wrong, I think these features are sensational. They are brilliant, they are so good, and we're going to go over them very shortly. And I know there's probably 100 of other videos that you could watch to demonstrate them and to teach you how to use them. That's not what this video is about. I'm just going to sort of show you what they are and what they can do. Of course it makes the editing process easier. Of course it does. And I, for one, have whinged so much when I've had to sit there and try and mask out the sky, or mask out a particular building, or mask out a particular person, and try to get it so refined. And also the fact that you've had to jump from Lightroom to Photoshop to do such a things and sort of jump back. Now that Lightroom has got these features within its own program, really steps up the game a little bit. Now when we go into the preset side of it, yes, I know, I barrack presets. I think presets are fundamentally a major part of my editing process. Especially when, again, if I've got a lot of photographs, I don't want to have to spend up to an hour trying to use all the sliders, going forth, going back, up and down, trying to get it perfect. But I will always still say that a preset is a beginning of your edit. It does happen from time to time that when I click a preset and I like the final product, that I generally sort of move on. But sometimes I do go back to that photograph and I go, do you know what, I might tweak it a little bit by sort of playing with the sliders again and try to improve the photograph a little bit more. But with these new mask features within Lightroom, they're just brilliant. They're just so good. So how about we sort of like jump into the computer and I will show you what I'm talking about, and I will sort of demonstrate how they sort of can benefit you as a photographer and as an editor when it comes to your photographs. So let's quickly jump into Lightroom and we'll have a quick little look at them, shall we? So here we go, here we are. We've got a picture of Phoenix sitting on a wall. And what you will notice is at the very top here, you've got these new little icons. You've got the crop, you've got the sort of spot removal, the red eye correction, which I don't really use, if I'm honest. Like, I don't usually get red eye anymore. And then you've got the masking features up here. So if you click on this one particularly here, and then you've got all these different, so you've got your usual one, you've got your sort of your radar, you've got your color range, and all these ones, and you've got your brush as well. But you've got these nice 2 new ones just up here. So we're going to concentrate on these select subject mask to begin with. And when you click on that, Lightroom is in the background having a bit of a think. It's looking at your photograph and it is determined what the subject is. So obviously it's the person, it is Phoenix, so it is now figuring out that and it's trying to get the best line. And as you can see, it is absolutely spot on. And you've got your little mask sort of panel up here, which is quite similar to the sort of mask that you would get in Lightroom. So straight away, I am sort of like cutting out the necessary to go into Photoshop, and it's right here. And it's done a fantastic job. So if I now want to just putting any details to Phoenix. So we're only going to play with the exposure. So if I brought that all the way down, you see that the rest of the background stays exactly the same, but Phoenix gets sort of darker, and again, if I go upwards, it'll sort of lighten her up a little. But what's even more special about this is that you can invert it. So if you go up to the invert and you tick on there, and all of a sudden it's doing everything around her, and she is still perfectly cut out of that particular photo. And I can darken that, and I can bring that up, and it is sensationally spot on. Because if you just look around the hairline, it's brilliant. It's very, very sort of detailed. There's not any leaking, and that would have probably taken me about 5-10 minutes to sort of make sure I've cut her out properly. You know, you can use the selection tab on Photoshop, but the fact of the matter is I've not had to go into another program has really sort of improved this particular sort of like step, really. And of course, if I want to do a little bit more with it, I can come into here and then I can select the subject, and it gives me all these little options here. So now I can come down to the brush and say I don't want the bottom of her sort of like I can sit there and I can start rubbing her out. So now I've already got part of her. So I can now also decide what part of the subject I still want to be improved, or I want to be brushed up, or anything like that. And it is just really, really spot on. But again, if you go into another photograph, which is like this one right here, and you go onto mask as well, and you press subject, have a little look how it's sort of still, it tries again, it figures out what is the subject. Now, my question would be, would it also select the lamppost? And it doesn't, it figures out which one is my model, and it masks her out and leaves the sort of like lamppost free, the background free, and it looks again really, really sensational. But the thing is, if you zoom in now, you will see that she has been perfectly selected, but her fingers haven't. So I can make adjustments to her, but her fingers stay the same shade. But if you want to correct that, if you go under the mask, you can then add a brush. Make sure you've got the auto mask selected, so you're only going to try to select the fingers. And then if you paint over the fingers, like that, you have now got a brush, and you've now told Lightroom what you would like it to select as well, in the same type of mask. And it's really, really good. But what you've also got to try and have a look at as well is how well this would affect other things. Of course, it works quite well with the models, but if you're a product photographer and you've got yourself a nice little product going on here. So here's the picture of the my trainers that I took a few weeks ago. And again, if you come over to the brush and go select subject, it looks at the particular photograph and it goes, right, the shoe is the subject. So once again, it figures out all the lines and it goes around. And even though the white and white background is very sort of similar to itself, it has even selected that that white is still part of the shoe. So again, you are able to sit there, and if you want to invert it, and then you want to bring down the background, so you've got the shoe more prominent, or the sort of like your subject more prominent, you can do that. And again, so I spent a fair bit of time just sort of playing around with this to have a look to see what other things you can do. So here's a picture of my watch, another product photography, and I'm going to go on to select subject. Now there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of stuff going on in this particular photograph. But again, Lightroom is clever enough, this new mask setup and system is clever enough to understand that I want to select the watch. And it's selected the main frame just here as well, you see. So if I want to bring that up slightly to bring a little bit more focus on the watch face. And again, of course, if I want more of the watch to be sort of affected by this particular mask, I can add my brush, and then I can brush around the side here as well, and I'm telling Lightroom what I would like selected. But the overall AI of it is pretty much sensational. And it's not just this one as well. As you very well know, there is also a select sky subject here too. So if we come onto here, and it is a nice sort of wide photo of Big Ben in the Houses of Parliament, and you've got this wonderfully big sky at the top, and we're going to go select sky. Now there's a lot of fine detail in this particular one. Obviously you've got the scaffolding, you've got the sort of like the towers, but but you've also got this little flag just up here. And what has impressed me the most about this particular sort of AI setup is that it also figures out that the flag is part of the building. It's selected the sky and it's going down until it recognizes the different pixels. And if you sort of start bringing that all the way down, you will notice that the flag has also been sort of like determined as part of the building. And it's so clever. See, there it is, you see, the flag is part of the building. And again, if you want to invert it and only affect the building itself, there we go. The flag is also in shadow. Now, when I sort of looked at this, and when obviously Photoshop brought this same type of system out, when you could change the sky and it would automatically mask out the sky, it got a little bit confused by itself. Now, I've not looked at the updates on Photoshop yet. I'm only sort of like, I don't use Photoshop that often, only to sort of remove a few details which make my photograph look ugly. But it got confused because it looks at a photograph and it determines that the top is in fact the sky, and it works its way down to see, right, these pixels are different, so that must be part of the building. So I decided to give it another go and try to really trick it with this particular photograph here. So my subject is over here on the sort of right hand side and the sky is over on the left. So what I would imagine Lightroom would do is it will look at the photograph and it will go from the top. But again, if you go select sky, it's looking at the photograph, it's recognizing what is the sky and what isn't, and it literally selects the sky on the left hand side and leaves my subject on the right out the mask completely. And it even selects the sky between the fly's legs as well. Look at that, it's literally in between the legs of the fly. So the fly hasn't been affected, the legs haven't been affected, but the sky, so it's gone there, so right, I can start from the top, but that's not the sky. The sky's on the left. So it was clever enough to realize that no matter what type of photograph that I have taken, regardless of the fact that, yeah, in most photographs, the sky's at the very top. And this one, it's gone, the sky's not at the top, it's on the left. So it's had to rethink itself, and it's done a brilliant job at sort of determining that it's on that side. Again, if I invert it, it only has the subject and has left the sky. And again, you can see if I hover over it or if I turn the overlay on, you'll see that it's used the legs and it's got a little bit of a sort of like a shadow around it to sort of help it blend in nicely. And yeah, I'm impressed. I am very much impressed. But let's go into the finer details now. So when you look at a photograph like this and you've got all these sort of like little wires going through, and even beforehand when I was taking photographs of the London Eye, I found it very difficult to sort of affect the sky or use the sky or play with the sky. So it does still get a little bit confused by what it needs to mask out and what's on. So it's brilliant, but again, it is not perfect. And you don't expect it to be perfect because it is technology, and you still need a little bit of sort of like know-how and skill to try to make sure you are doing the best that you can for your photographs. So if you look here, if we bring it all the way down, you will notice that it has done an okay job at noticing that the sort of like the beams inside the London Eye aren't in fact part of the sky, but it has sort of at the very top included it in the sky itself. And also with the select subject. So I've got this photograph of me. Now when I took this photograph, I planned to sort of edit myself, but try to leave the fence all to itself. But if you go select subject on this one, it will sort of, again, it will look at the photograph and it will sort of go, right, this person is the model, this is the subject, this is the person that we've got to sort of mask out. But it doesn't necessarily sort of go, right, but there's a fence in front of him. And as you'll notice, the mask does a great job at masking me out. But if you look, it also determines that the fence itself is part of me, and it has in fact actually missed out my hand. So I would have to add a brush and sort of brush myself and my hand a little bit as well. So it does a sensational job, but there's still a little bit of skill and detail that you have to do yourself to sort of like do the finer details, which is why I sort of say, is this in fact making us lazy? Now when it comes to presets as well, like it's really upped its game when it comes to sort of like the presets. So if you go over to the left-hand side, you will see you've got all of your presets, but they've actually included some in-house presets. So you've got portraits, auto, sort of starized, subjects with food, landscapes. And again, yeah, they are really, really good. So we just sort of scroll through a couple here. And they're really sort of like they're subtle, they're not sort of like OTT. And even the black and white ones are really, really good. As you know, I like my black and white photography. And they are, but like I said, with the presets themselves, they've really had a thought about what type of styles you have, what type of styles you like. But as the whole thing itself has sort of like upped its game a little bit. So going back to my question, has it made us lazy? Yes and no. With the type of technology that we now have in our phone cameras, and with the type of technology which is now in our Lightroom, you know, either being sort of the classic or the sort of Lightroom CC, you can pretty much take your phone out now, shoot a banger, use a mask, use a preset, and you've got yourself an award-winning photograph. But does that really also make us lazy as photographers? Now, I don't think so, because at the end of the road, to make your photograph stand out, you do still need the eye. The photographer's eye. Everyone talks about the eye, like, can you see what other people don't see? Can you get down? Can you get up? Can you get that perfect photograph, which most people won't necessarily sort of see on a day-to-day basis, which is the sort of fundamental part of photography as well. Yes, anybody with a camera can call themselves a photographer, but of course, if you don't make your photograph stand out, which is one of the reasons why the editing process is so good, because I love editing photographs. It is probably my favorite stage of the sort of creative process when you go out and take photographs. Generally, when I took a photo of a building, I have an idea how I want to edit it. And sometimes when I bring it into my laptop, I go through my presets and have a bit of a play, and you know, I'll go, wow, that's really, really good if I make a vibrant photograph, or if I make it black and white, or if I make it look vintage. These are brilliant, and they have definitely made our lives a lot easier, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a photographer has become lazy. Because at the end of the road, yeah, it has taken me a long, long time to be as good as a photographer as I am. I've still got a long, long way to go, and there's still an awful lot that I need to learn still going forward. You know, and it's like anything, really. It's like anything. Like if I bought a guitar today, it doesn't mean I can pick up and start playing Wonderwall. Of course I can't. I need to practice. I need to make it sort of like my own. I need to sit there and spend sort of hours and hours and hours practicing that particular song to be able to play it well enough to want to show it to people. But that also doesn't mean that if you are new to photography and you are starting to sort of like cut your teeth, I suppose, when it comes to the editing side of it, because that is still a very difficult part of the process. You can over edit your photographs, and I have definitely been a sort of like a victim of an over edited photo, especially in my early days. I think I'm enjoying the sort of like the journey that Adobe is doing. I'm enjoying the fact that they are making the editing process a lot easier. They're obviously asking questions towards a photographer and going like, what would make your life easier? What would make your workflow easier? And we've gone, well, if we had a couple of these things going on in Lightroom and not going on in Lightroom, like I just said, I think they are really, really good. They will definitely help with my workflow going forwards. And I think they would definitely help a lot of photographers who are just starting out develop their skills better. But I will warn you, do not just rely on these new sort of like updates. You know, you do still need to spend the time and effort to sort of perfect your craft. You know, and that's not even going into understanding the ins and outs of an actual camera, of the sort of like the triangle, ISO, aperture, and shutter speed as well, because that's a fundamental bit to make sure you do less work here if you do more work there. But guys, I hope that wasn't too boring. I hope that wasn't a sort of like, you know, another typical video about the new updates in Lightroom. I do think they're brilliant. I do think they are definitely making life easier, but also for the good. So guys, that is it, done and dusted for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to hearing your comments and your thoughts on these particular updates down in the comments below. So please, please, please come and say hello. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. I've been Nathan, and you have always been sensational. See you later. Bye.